I hope that this presentation is going to be useful for you. If you have any questions, and you can share whatever in whatever time you can interrupt me. Okay, so we're going to share the screen here. Can you see, Becca?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, thank you so much, everybody, to come. So we are talking today about soil health. We are talking about the basics of the soil. I think it's important for everybody to understand a little bit more. And we are going to start with the definition of the soil. It's a scientific definition. And Bachman and Brady defined that the soil like a dynamic natural body on the surface of the earth in which plants grow, composed of minerals, organic matter, and living forms. So that is important. I take this one because they introduced the minerals, organic matter, and living forms. I like that definitions, but also that is a dynamic natural body. What's dynamic? That means that it's going to be it's not static, it's going to have movement. It's going to be a party under the land. But also we have another conceptions about land and soil. It's not a scientific, but people from the Andes think that the soil is like our mother. They call her mother. So they have this goodness that is called Pachamama. So that I think this information, because I prefer to think that the land and the soil is our mother. So it's going to be easier for us to take care of man. So to take care of man, we need to know about the land, about the soil. Land is our mother, and I put this acronym to remember that the soil have some components, mineral component, and organic matter component, and microorganisms. This is the three components that are very basic to understand. Always try to remember these components when you are talking about your mom. Science also define the ideal soil, like an ideal soil need to have a percentage of minerals that is around 40%, 45% of minerals, 5% of organic matter, 25% of water, and 25% of air. But when I mentioned before, don't forget microorganisms that are part of these ones. But this is the components. So we need water, minerals, organic matter, and air in the soil to provide some structures. For example, air is going to be useful for the roots, for the plants, for the microorganisms. The water, everybody needs water. And the minerals to provide nutrients, and organic matter also provide nutrients of the plant and structure. So first, we're going to start with the minerals. We're going to talk about the minerals. For that, I'm going to talk about the soil formation. It's important that we know about how is the soil formation. So in one case you lost soil, you try to create soil. That is organic agriculture, to create soil. But for that, we need to understand how is the soil formation. Basically, the soil comes from a rock. So when you are walking on the soil, you are walking on a rock. The soil was a rock before. But with action, the climate, the topography and living organisms, the end result is the soil. So for example, look this picture. We have here this green stain that are organisms that are very close to the rock, and they break the rock. It takes a long time, but they are trying to break down the rock to create soil. And also we have another elements like other organisms like the tree that also try to break down the rock. And this rock in the future, after probably millions of years, we are going to have a soil. So to create soil takes time for the nature. It's believed that we need 300 years to create a cubic centimeter of soil. But in organic agriculture, we can create this one in less time. Okay. I want to stop a little bit. Mario is calling me right now. So just one moment. Probably Mario have problems with the access. I'm going to stop a little bit.
Okay, sounds good. Mario is one of our farmers at Big River Farms, and he might be having trouble getting into the class.
Tell me, ¿tienes problemas? Ok, voy a enviarte la conexión, ok? Ya te envío. Sorry about that, Mario doesn't have access to the connection. I'm going to send the link. Becca, can you send me the link to my mail, please? Could you send me, please?
Yes.
I'm trying to look
1 second.
The link, but I don't know where is that. I think I have it.
I sent it to you in a text message.
Okay, thank you, Becca.
Yeah, thank you everyone for your patience as we're just trying to figure this out really quick.
Okay, we're going to continue. Sorry for that interruption. Yeah, so we are talking about the soil formation. I was talking about that. A rock transforming a soil for different mechanisms. So one of these is the action of the microorganisms and the climate topography. Yeah, but yeah, it takes a long time. So when the rock is broken, we have different size of particles. We classify the particles in 3 groups. One of these is the sand, clay, and silt. It is define the texture of the soil. So it's a combination of the minerals in different size. That this is the classification of the size of the particles of the soil. There are more than 50,000 minerals in the soil, in the earth, sorry. And that's important to study because plants contain minerals. So they use to grow up. So plants is going to feed with minerals. So let's go to see a little bit about sand. I think it's the largest particle in the soil. The measure is around 0.2 millimeters to 2 millimeters. So field sanding, when you rub between your fingers, have a larger space. The water flows through it easily. It warms up quickly in spring, that I think is good for farming, and dries out quickly in the summer. Have a low water retention, it's not good for farming. Low organic matter content, that is not good for farming, and low in nutrients. So sometimes the nutrients leaching when in these particles. So when you have the texture with a more percentage of sand, you are going to have probably some benefits. For example, you have larger spaces between the particles. That is going to facilitate the roots that can grow up. That is the reason that when you buy potting soil, sometimes you can use sand in that one, like an ingredient. But also, it's possible to lynch that ingredients, the nutrients, in the greenhouse if you don't know how to water the plants. So that is important to know. If you put too much water in the greenhouse, in the trays, you are going to lose the nutrients, because we have a lot of amount of sand. The percentage of the sand is high in the potting soil. Another texture is the seal. Another particles that we classified is the seal. It has thickness like a hair. So imagine take one hair, and that one is the thickness of this particle. Feels like a floor in your hands. Retain water and nutrients better than sandy soils. Sometimes these have a problems of compaction if you don't know how to manage the land. And also it's easy to wash away if you till too much. And that one is the texture of the soil clay. Is for me is one I really like this one because retain a lot of nutrients, but also it's very difficult to manage. The clay soils you are going to spend too much time working in this type of soils. But they have a very small spaces between the particles. They are very close, the particles between in this texture. So it's difficult for roots to grow up. It feels sticky when it's wet. It has poor water filtration. When I mentioned it's difficult to warm, it warms up slowly in the spring. For example, one example that I can use a clay soil is when you are making compost. Sometimes we need to mix some ingredients like manure, whatever organic matter, and also soil. Sometimes we use in the ingredients to make compost. If you have the access to have a clay, it's better than other soil because you are going to have a retention of nutrients. So I think is a good example that you can use the clay in pure state. But for farming, the ideal is to have the three kind of textures. We need to have clay, sand, and silt, and this is called loam soil. It's a mixture of the three textures. So in general terms, if you have a soil that contains less than 35% to 40% of clay and less than 50% of sand, you have a suitable soil for agriculture. You are going to have a very good balance of the ingredients, of the components, of the particles. You are going to have a very good porosity, good aerations for the plant. It's going to have a good rain. You are going to have water rotations, nutrients availability. So yeah, that's important. But if you increase the content of silt, you can produce soil compaction if you manage the land in a suitable way. So how you can estimate in your land the texture? So it's not difficult. You can take a jar with a soil sample and you can mix with water. And also you can put soup here to help separate the particles, the different particles of the soil. And you mix that one and you need to wait. Sometimes you need to wait more than 3 weeks. So it's going to take a long time, but it's going to be, it's not difficult. So after that you wait that the particles separate, when the particles are separate, you can measure the portion of the land that you have. For example, in this case, we have more sand because sand is going to be at the bottom because it's heavier than the silt, and the clay is the lighter particle in the soil. So this one is going to be at the top, always. So the sand is going to be here at the bottom. In the middle, you're going to find the silt and the clay. You can see here, this soil have more percentage of the sand. It's a loam soil. And this one, you can use that information in the soil texture triangle. So this is very common in the university teach that one. It could be useful for you because it's not difficult to identify the texture of the soils, the type of soils with this triangle. So for example, in our example, we have 20% of clay, 10% of silt, and 70% of sand. And this triangle have all these elements. In one side, for example, in the left side, we have the clay with a percentage. In the right side, we have the silt with their percentage. Here at the bottom, we have the sand also with the percentage. For example, we have here 70% of sand part. We can put here. We have 10% of silt. We are going to put here. And finally, 20% of clay. We're going to be here. If we cross these lines, if we are going to identify the type of soil that you have. This one is a sandy clay loam and sandy loam is between these ones. And this one is important because this type of soils are suitable for agriculture, especially the loams. The sandy clay loam, the clay loam, the loam, the silt clay loam, silt loam. So yeah, maybe you can use when you are going to rent a land or you are going to buy a land. Maybe you can make your own test of this. So we was talking about the texture, but also it's important to talk about the structure of the soils. What is the structure? So when you have the combination of sand, silt, and clay, and this is combined with organic matter, they form aggregates, but basically they form shapes. So for agriculture, the granular shape is good, but also we can have these other structures. This structure is very related with the permeability. So in soils that have like a massive, this type of structure, we don't have access to the water. The root is very difficult. This is a soil compaction. And as you see, for example, we have here it's easy that you transform your soil to a massive like this. If you don't know how to manage, especially the tractor, so or the heavy or machinery, when the machinery is too heavy, especially the tractor, they produce soil compaction. So you don't know how to manage. You drive too many times and in your land, if you do prevent soil compaction, you can transform a good soil like a granular soil, because this one is easy for plants to grow up. You have water, you have air that have benefits for the microorganisms, for the roots, but you can transform in these ones, and these ones to be more difficult to work. And after that, we need to recover this land. For recovering this land, you need more resources, energy, and time. Also, you can recover. Generally, you can recover with organic matter. You can add organic matter and you can plant cover crops. So the roots is going to break the soil. When the plant dies, we are going to have spaces here. So it's a way to recover a soil compaction. Look in this graph. This is an ideal soil. You have porosities here. You have air, easy for the roots to grow up. And the microorganisms need air as well. And the water is here. This is an ideal soil. But if you compacted this soil, you are going to lose these spaces. You are going to lose the air. You are going to lose the spaces that the water can go through this. So far is a summary. That is just to remember that soil is a combination of minerals in different sizes that provide the soil texture. Soil texture determines features in the soil that affect the plant growth. For example, the growth of the roots and the nutrients ability. So we know that there is structures that, like the clay, have more nutrients than other. And also, these features determine the soil workability. So it's different to work in soils with too much sand or too much clay. It's going to be difficult to make agriculture, but also it's possible to do that. We need to know about this one to know how is going to be the manage of the soil. And now we're going to talk about the plant. How do plants fit? So plants fit generally with minerals. These minerals are called macronutrients or micronutrients, but also we have a partner mineral. So one of the most important elements for the plant come from the partner mineral and come from the air. So plants absorb carbon, hydrogen, oxygen from the air and the water. So those elements are necessary that for the plants is going to grow, and the plant takes from the atmosphere, from the air. If that one is the percentage of these elements in the biomass, in the mass of these plants is around 93%. So we have a lot of these elements in the plant, and we have here. But how the plants take these elements for their nutrition? They take through using the energy of the sun. Through the leaves, they take this nutrient, this energy. The plant can absorb the other elements. It generally is to produce sugar. It's a component. It's a very important component. So yeah, so these elements generally you don't add it to the soil because it's in the air, so that we are lucky. But also the plants needs other elements. So the plants only, it's impossible for the plants live just with these elements, these three elements. Also, they need a mineral component that is in the soil. That is very important. So this component that the plant takes from the soil are called also micronutrients, and the plant needs in large amounts. One of these one is nitrogen, the other is phosphorus and potassium. Maybe you are familiar with these elements when you are buying and fertilizer or nutrients. You can see in the labels NPK. This means that is the percentage of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium that fertilizer has. So nitrogen is very related with is responsible for the growth of the leaves on the plant. So you want to have more leaves, you add more nitrogen. Also, this element helps to absorb other nutrients. Deficiency of nitrogen and turn yellow the leaves. So you can see when you don't have too much nitrogen, the plant is going to be turned yellow. For example, when you are using fresh manure, not fresh manure, when you're using green manure, you could add grass. When this one is green, you are going to provide. If you added this one to the soil, you are going to provide more nutrient when the leaves is going to die. It's going to have a process of decomposition. So it's better to add this one when it's green, because you can provide more nitrogen. Phosphorus, the main role is developing the roots of the plants and helping with the flowers and fruit development. So maybe that will be is important information if you are going to produce carrots. So you need to focus in this element, or cassava maybe, but this is not part of this region. But yeah, if you are producing something related with roots, phosphorus is a good element to know that the plant is needed. Potassium is, in general terms, is help for the plant health. But also you can see when you have a deficient of potassium that the fruit is going to be small. We have another macronutrients that is called the secondary macronutrients, are those usually needed in moderate amounts comparing to the primary micronutrients, that is the phosphorus, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. But these ones also are important. For example, this one, magnesium, is a component of the chlorophyll. And the chlorophyll is very related with the photosynthesis, because the chlorophyll is going to be here in the plant, is a green substance that is component of the leaves, and it helps with the photosynthesis of the plants to produce sugar to grow out the plant. So that is very important element as well. So all these elements are important. Calcium. Calcium is a structural component related to growing organs such as roots, fruits, and new sprouts. And sulfur is related to the fiber for many vegetables. So yeah, this is important to know that one. It's very interesting that some elements also provide taste to your crops. And also we have the micronutrients that are requiring in small amounts in comparison to macronutrients. So the plants need these elements in tiny amounts, but also are very important. So the mean that the plant needed just in small amounts, that doesn't mean that the plants don't need it. That is the similar importance than the macronutrients. So, but sometimes people ignore this one, especially when you are going to buy fertilizers. You don't see that elements in your in your label, sometimes only you see N, P, and K. But yeah, these elements help plants to assimilate other nutrients for growth and health. Just one thing, for example, I'm reading right now about the silicon. I'm very interested in this element because this element is important to protect the plant for the attack of the insects. So you are going to have attack of insects if you can check your soil test. If you don't have enough silicon, probably it's going to help a lot of, because this element is create and structures that when the insects come to the plant can eat it because it's too strong. So that is interesting to know about also the microelements, the microelements, the micronutrients. All are essential. Also, it's called essential nutrients. That is the mean, because all these elements are essential and have a role in the plant. So the key points to remember is that soils come from the rock. Rock is very important to have a soil. And the combination of minerals in different, soil is a combination of minerals in different size. And plant contain these minerals elements, like micronutrients and micronutrients. For example, when you harvest a crop, you are taking out minerals. So you need to replace that minerals. You need to think about that one. When you, for example, extract something from the land, you need to recover the land. So that's important to add the micro and micro elements to the soil. But look at this one, this figure. You can see the rocks here, and it's no surprise that in Brazil and in organic agriculture, people are using rock dust to mineralize the soil, to provide minerals to the plants. So, but when you provide minerals or you provide nutrients, when you added chicken manure, cow manure, or whatever, and man to the soil, you provide nutrients not for the plant. You are providing nutrients for the microorganisms, really. So that's important to know. And to know that one, because microorganisms is like an army in the soil. So if we work very hard in our farms, microorganisms work very hard in the soil. They are doing the best job for us. They are our friends. So without microorganisms, we are not going to have plants, because the plants can take directly the nutrients from the soil. So what is a microorganism? A microorganism is an organism that is usually seen through a microscope, so it's very tiny. It's related with fungi, bacteria, protozoa, and algae. So there are more organisms in the gram of soil than there are human beings on the earth. So that is a lot of. So microorganisms is a totally a new word. So we only know about the 40% about the organisms in the soil, the microorganisms, just 40%. So we need to discover is a totally new word. But microorganisms provide nutrients for the plants. So we are going to talk about how the microorganisms provide the nutrients. How is the action? If, for example, we have here a rock, and we have here microorganisms, fungi, microorganisms, and bacteria. So bacteria and fungi attack the rock and destroy, discompose the rocks, break down the rock. They produce acids, and they discompose the rocks. And break the rock and release minerals available for the plant. That is important of the microorganisms. This is a way that the plant take the nutrients from the minerals, from the rocks, from the soil. And this one is another relationship that another form that microorganisms also take nutrients from the soil and from the air is through the relationship. Is a symbiotic relationship. So that what's the mean symbiotic is that both organisms here, for example, have a bacteria in this side and we have a fungi in the other side, but they generate a connection between the plant, especially in the roots. So they have a very good relationship, and both plant and microorganisms have a benefit of this relation that occurs in the plant. It's like a romance. It's like a first love in the soil, in the roots especially. So the plants provide sugar that the microorganisms needed to grow up, and the microorganisms provide nutrients, decompose the nutrients in the soil to provide nutrients for the plant, if the plant can grow up. So that is one of the mechanisms that plant can take nutrients associated. So it's a collaborative process. This one is called mycorrhiza. It's a structure, especially related with fungi. Myco means fungi, and rice is roots. So this is the reason that of this word, mycorrhiza. So it's the relationship between myco and plant through the roots, in the roots. So this is that is the mechanism of the fungi provide nutrients. And this one is amazing because you can take from here nutrients and you provide to the root. Nutrients like an extension of the roots of the plant. And the other microorganisms that have a relationship with plant and with the plant is a bacteria. So the bacteria lives here in this bowl that is called noodles. In general, plants like legumes, they have these noodles where bacteria can live. And also the plant provides sugar to the bacteria, but and the bacteria can take nitrogen from the atmosphere, from the air, and put in the soil and provide nitrogen for the plant. It's amazing because you have nitrogen in a free way when you plant legumes. So this is the reason that many people plant legumes. You can see, for example, if you can go to the place of the plot of pears. Pears have planted legumes between the beds. Probably is one of the reasons, because have some benefits from the soil, especially with the nitrogen for the available for the nitrogen in the soil. That is a fixation, I think, is the name. Yeah, but you can have nitrogen from the air. That is a free fertilizer for you. It's like to add urea here. And finally, is another way that the plants take the nutrients from the soil is when is a recycled elements. For example, when you leave elements like organic matter, like plants leather or whatever dead material here, the plants attack these elements and release nutrients for the plant. It's like a composting process. So that is the way that is the reason that people, I think that is the reason that people make compost, they try to do the same thing that the soil do, that under the soil. They copy the process and they make the same process. Because when you are doing compost, you need organic material. Also, you need microorganisms. That is the thing. You wait that the bacteria and fungi decompose this element to produce nutrients. And when you added, for example, clay in that composting process, that nutrients is going to retain in the clay, and you can add it to the soil. Okay, just to remember, we are talking about the minerals. Now we are going to talk about the organic matter. This is going to be very short because Becca is going to explain a little bit more about how to get organic matter. But yeah, organic matter consists of dead plants, animal, microorganisms, including animal and microbial waste products in different stages of decomposition. So look, this imagine, this image. You can see many leaves here that are now decomposing, and they have different stages. So sometimes it's more decomposed than others. But yeah, at the end, the organic matter breaks down into a humus, which is basically stable in the soil. So everything is going to transform, or all the organic matter is going to transform in humus. And the word humus comes from the same root that humanity. So that's very interesting, because when you are talking about humus, you are talking about the life. So humanity is that we provide. Everybody provides from the land. Everybody comes from the land. So this is not surprising me that we use the same root of this word to define humanity. Organic matter is a good source of carbon and nitrogen and also other nutrients. So they provide nutrients for plants and also help with the structure of the plants. They provide aerations to the plant and also retains a lot of water. So that is going to be useful in the process of farming. So when you have more organic matter, you are going to have more available nutrients for the plants. But also you need to add it, or you need to take care microorganisms, because if you don't care the microorganisms, the biology in the soil, you are not going to have nutrients. So that is important. I want to mention that when you are doing organic agriculture, it's important to management, especially the organic matter together with microorganisms and minerals to provide good conditions for the soil. Sometimes we use too much machinery that disturb the soil. So microorganisms really don't like that touch the soil. But if you need to touch because you are doing agriculture, you need to manage in the best way. So yeah, it's your work to investigate every day more about how to preserve microorganisms in the soil, and how to conserve organic matter, and how to add organic matter and minerals in the soil. And I think that is my presentation. If you have any questions so far.
Can we get these slideshow or these slideshow email to us?
Yes. I will send a follow-up email after this class, and I will send the slideshow and the recording as well.
So what would be a good balance of minerals and nutrients for gardening? I know that you show a few that triangle diagram, and you also mentioned about macronutrients and micronutrients. What will be a balanced ecosystem for farming?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. It's a good question. So, general, in the scientifics, general make soil tests. When you have soil samples, you go to the lab and you can see what do you need it, which portions of your elements do you have right now. And if you make this analysis right now, and at the end of the seasons, you are going to see the difference. You are going to see which portion of the minerals you lost, for example. You can recover that one. But for me, in agriculture, for me, I think that the plants need to eat every day. It's like a human. So the plants need to eat all days. The humans also need to eat all days. If you, for example, you put just one portion of minerals in one time, what happened the next day? So organic matter is help to retain nutrients, and you can add organic matter, and for the future, the plant is going to have nutrients from this organic matter, because organic matter is like a reservoir of nutrients. So that makes sense. So first is, if you work with organic matter, you are going to have available nutrients for the plants during the seasons. When you see that you don't have too much organic matter, you are going to have a problem, because you are going to reduce the organic matter for the soil. When you are going to have the test, you see that your organic matter is going to reduce, you are taking nutrients from the land. You don't provide to the plant. So that is important to manage organic matter and minerals. And for example, when I mentioned people put dust in other countries, in Brazil especially, put rock dust to provide minerals, but also provide, they make a lot of compost to provide organic matter, to have reservoir of the nutrients. In conventional agriculture, you only put nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And this is available for the plant. So the microorganisms don't need to decompose this one. Is available for the plant, but you can lose nutrients, because it's easy to wash these elements that the industry making. In organic agriculture, is more difficult, that you try to lynch these nutrients. But if you have first a soil analysis, you are going to know how much organic matter do you have. Personally, I manage the soil samples. For me, the most important is the amount of organic matter that you have, because I know that you are going to have more nutrients in the organic matter. So you need to put organic matter as much as you can, as much your system is going to be efficient. There is not a rule in organic production. Also, you can follow the idea to have a soil samples and monitoring that one, but it's better that you always build the soil like the nature. So nature is very important for us, because it's the way that we need to learn about. So try to ask the questions to the nature. You can see the nature, you can see the forest, and ask these questions. How you provide nutrients for the plants, because in a forest, in a pristine forest, you don't have deficiency of nutrients. You don't have pests. So you need to learn about that this ecosystem that they provide a lot of information. How they take all the leaves and they put in the soil. How they manage the land. Have you seen a tractor in the forest to produce food for the plants? No. But the plants always is provide organic matter. But the thing is that in a profitable production, in a crop production, you take these elements from the plants. But in a short terms, you can make a soil analysis, soil test, and you can see the initial amount of minerals or macronutrients and microelements and organic matter. You can estimate which percentage you can add it. And we are going to help with that as well in the plan of soil fertility. Any other question?
Yes. So you are saying the macronutrients and the micronutrients that you get. Where would you find those? To give it to the plant. I mean, yeah. I assume there's many different types of rocks. How do you know which one is the right one to offer to put in your soil?
Oh, of course. Think that you provide minerals through rock, the rock that is in the soil, but also through the organic matter, like plants that are diet, and also you can provide. You have in the top, you have a different types of plants. That means that is going to have a different minerals that is going to provide to the plant. So you have a cocktail of plants. On the top, you're going to have the same thing, the same minerals in the soil is going to provide that one. And also it's related with the different microorganisms. So you have different plants. Diversity on the top is the same diversity under the soil, in the soil. So you have more diversity, you're going to have more nutrients for the plants. That is the reason that if you put, imagine if you have a son, if you only feed your son with rice, imagine what is going to happen. You need to diversify. That is in terms of organic matter. In terms of rocks that you mentioned, we have, we can provide minerals from the rocks, especially with a basalt rock. I'm going to give you a document that probably is going to be useful for you, that mention which rocks are best for agriculture to provide minerals. So, but if you have more colors in the rock, it's the same thing in the dish that you eat it. You have more colors, you have more minerals, vitamins for you. It's the same thing. You make a cocktail with a different colors. When you are going to be in at the big river farms, try to see the floor of the pack shell. And this one is a very good source of nutrients, but need to be in dust. You need to grind that one. And sometimes you need to go to the places and that produce rocks for gardening or something like that, and you can take that product. The thing is that you need to think in your economy. Sometimes you can find in a cheaper way, but also you can looking for Amazon and you can see basalt rocks. You can see a grind that someone grind rocks and you put a price, but also you can do that. Okay. Probably you can buy a machinery. You can cooperate, like microorganisms cooperate with plants. You can cooperate with other farmers, and you can buy a machine to grind rocks. You can buy tons of rocks and grind them, and after you can share that ones. But yeah, if you're asking about the rocks, different rocks, if I need to choose, basalt rock is good, glacial rocks are good. If you have more colors, you have different minerals.
Okay.
Different minerals is going to be better for the plant.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
But also, don't forget to add microorganisms. So don't forget that one. In organic agriculture, there are methods that you can add microorganisms to the soil.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You have a question in the chat from Moses. It says, does the amount of minerals present affect microorganisms in the soil?
Let me see the chat.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good question. So depends of the minerals also. Depends of the minerals. I don't want to say that you need to grind the rocks and spread a lot of these ones, because you are going to change the pH of the soils. You can kill, you can reduce the content of the microorganisms in the soil, depends of the amount that you put it, if you add it. So that is a good question, because I don't want to say that you need to spread whatever amount of that one. So there is amounts that you can spread in order that to have a good harmony between the soil and minerals. But you need to provide. But the most important is also to know how much minerals do you extract from the soil. So it's science thing that, because I was working in a soil lab, when you make a analysis of soil, especially with the plants, they take from the leaves. They take samples from the leaves, and they estimate the amount of minerals that the plant has. But you are not taking the leaves, at least that you are produce lettuce. But when you produce carrots or tomatoes, the content of the minerals is going to be different. So if you really want to know that one, you need to make analysis very specific, that one. But yeah, is an approximation, the material that you are going to find in your books. But thinking about that one, what happened when you burn your plants? The non-mineral components you are going to lose. You are going to have ashes, and that ashes are minerals. So this is the reason that people put ashes in their plants. Thinking that you extract minerals when you are doing farming. So we need to replace that minerals, because the plant is working for us. We need to work also for the plant, for the plants. I don't know if you create a budget for that. I think it's a good idea to create a budget for the plants, because they are working also together with us. I mentioned that we are everybody. The word humus is the same word that comes from the roots that share the same root with humanity. When you are talking about the roots, also is the same root for humility. Humil? I think so. It's the same root. When you're talking about that one, humility is when you see the other living organisms in the same level than you. So yeah, we need to take with respect. There are working plants working for us. Also, we care the plants, and microorganisms work for us. So we need to take care of the microorganisms as well. Easy or not? Another question.
I have a question. I find the information very very good, but I find it complicated and confusing as a beginner that I've got that you present all these information, but I guess I'm looking for, as a beginner, I'm looking for, okay, how do I get it? How do I start? And how do I start a garden that I don't need to get into so much of the scientific side of it? I need to know, like, kind of like, for example, like if I'm starting a fish tank, I need to know what kind of stuff I put in there so that the water are balanced. Is the pH too high? Is the pH too low? But not to get too technical of, you know,
Yeah,
of all the stuff. So to me, this is good information, but I feel confused and complicated because it makes me don't want to farm anymore, because if I gotta achieve all this in order to just to do farming, then it kind of defeats the purpose of trying to farm. So
yeah,
I think that, do you guys have kind of like a diagram or a kind of like a cheat sheet, or saying that, you know what, if you rent a land or if you have your own land, this is what you need to, you know, try to aim for, like kind of like a middle ground, so that, you know, so that if you plant this kind of vegetable, this is what, you know, you need to have your soil at, or if you plant this other if you grow this other plant, you need to your soil needs to be like this. But it's I feel like it's kind of like a question mark, where I don't know where I should hit for my soil.
yeah. Thank you for your comment. Really, I really appreciate that one. So yeah, that one, the information that I send you is not that you be scary. It's
Mhm.
only want to inform that basically that I want to take this one, that information, that the main points of these slides is to know that you need to know three things: that we have microorganisms in the soil,
Yep.
that we have minerals in the soil, and organic matter. That one is the only thing that you need to know for now. The other things is is a complementary situation, but the only thing is that, so you need to know that we have microorganisms, and we need to learn how to take care of the microorganisms. So when in the future, when you are doing your gardening, you are doing farming, you are going to see one, I don't know, one document that talking about microorganisms. You say, how you can preserve microorganisms in the soil, and you can read that one if you want, because that is important for the soil. When you're talking about organic matter, okay, how you can get organic matter? Okay, this is the way that we can get organic matter in the future when you have more experience, or whenever you think is a good moment. You are going to talk about the organic matter. You know that this is an important element to provide nutrients. You say, okay, and minerals. Okay, minerals. The minerals the plants take the minerals through the microorganisms, and no more. You don't need to learn more than this. I think is something very basic that you need to know, that microorganisms help us to provide nutrients for the plant. No more than this. If we are going to work together to find solutions for example, okay, how we are going to provide nutrients? Okay, let's go to make a compost. If we are going to do that one in the field, because agriculture is not in a screen. Agriculture is with your hands, and it's directly with the land. So only I want to mention these things just to know that, okay, we can create a organic fertilize with microorganisms. Why we are doing that one? Because you need microorganisms to decompose the minerals. Okay, we are going to put rock dust in a compost. Why we are putting this? We adding rock in a compost ingredient? Because it's part of the soil. It is a source of minerals. That makes sense.
Yeah.
For you? Yeah.
Yep.
Don't worry about that. I think it's going to be easy. I don't want to complicate that one. Agriculture is you are doing agriculture in the land. So even I am learning about agriculture. Even me is also I'm still learning about the agriculture. But this is the knowledge that I know that I was thinking that is going to be useful for you in the future. But I don't want to complicate the life. I really want to understand 3 components.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Any other question?
Emilio, there is another question in the chat from Moses asking, how does commercial fertilizer affect the soil?
Oof.
Do you know much? Yeah. It's
Yeah,
a good question.
It's a good question. Yeah, that is. I'm not one to talk about that. This about the commercial fertilizer. Depends the commercial fertilizer. If it's organic, is not organic. Is a synthetic fertilizer like urea or something like that. Because if it's an organic fertilizer, if you manage that one in the proper way, it's going to be useful. There is another synthetic fertilizer that really change the chemical conditions in the soil, and you can increase you can change the pH of the soil. When you change the pH of the soil, also microorganisms can't live in that one. For example, it's one example of the things that is a problem for agriculture when you change the pH of the soil, because some nutrients can be assimilated for the plant. The nutrients can take from the plant. Another thing is that you can, when you added, for example, urea, is easy to lynch. So the urea drain is going to go through the different layers of the soil, and they're going to go to the water sources. And sometimes when the water comes to the rivers, they have a lot of nitrogen in the rivers. You reduce the oxygen in the rivers, and the organisms in the rivers die. So it's another consequence of use this type of chemicals. I don't know if I answer your questions.
Thank you, Mario. You answered my question, and I meant the synthetic fertilizers and how they, we know that's why we advocate or we champion for organic methods or organic fertilizers. Because we know if you use the artificial fertilizers, they are basically salts, and they eventually change the soil pH, and different plants take up nutrients because of at a certain pH range, or the soil being at a certain pH. So that can be a problem. And I grew up in Kenya. I saw that we were using the NPK, and later on we'll top dress with the urea. And then because we did this for so many years, eventually we could not grow anything on that soil. unless we put artificial fertilizer and urea. You know, even if the soil has, you know, like it's loam soil or it's that good soil, but sometimes something goes missing because of using the artificial fertilizers. So yeah.
Yeah, because
Now,
you affect the
yeah.
condition of the soil.
Go
But
ahead.
thank you for sharing that one. I really want that this space people share their experience, because I'm learning about your experience. So that is very important for farmers. I am farmer too. If we can share more experience, we are going to have more information to provide to take care of the land, to take care of our crops. So that one is very important. So if you have a traditional knowledge, you want to share, we can one day and we can talk about that one. So I'm very interested in about that one, your practices, your best practices that you consider that one. If we can share that one. It's very important that one. In the place that I come, we share this information all the time. We share the experience. We say, I doing this one. How do you do that one? Because there is no recipes in organic agriculture. Don't think that organic agriculture is to have a recipe about compost, about how to make a fertilizer. Organic agriculture is to understand the basic of the life, how the life is coming. So it's the only way that we can improve the conditions to improve the condition of the soil to have a best crops. So yeah, it is going to take a time. So, but we need to start in one moment to understanding what happened with the soil. We need to do that one. We need to work in that together. Any question? Another question?
Okay. If there aren't any other questions, I am going to just briefly go over cover crops and what they are and how they build organic matter in the soil. I'm personally really fascinated by cover crops, and I am still continuing to learn about them myself. So I'm having this kind of section of the presentation be more of an overview of cover crops. There will be more opportunity in our program to learn more about cover crops from other people in our community that are more experts in that field. I'm just going to cover briefly a little bit about cover crops, because many organic farmers use cover crops to bring nutrients to the soil, and also many different benefits that can be used with cover crops. One second, let me just share my screen so I can get back to the PowerPoint here. Oops. Let's see. Oops. Okay. Oops. Oh my gosh, brought us all the way back. One second. I'm just going to share it like this, if that's not too distracting. Okay, cover crops. They are essentially crops that are grown for the protection and the enrichment of soil. And here are a few just cover crops and their soil benefits. Here are a few of the benefits that cover crops bring to the soil. They can prevent soil erosion. They enhance organic matter in the soil. They conserve water resources. They can also reduce insect and disease damage, and they can actually host beneficial microbial life, and that kind of discourages diseases, and they also encourage different really beneficial insects. And so that's just something really interesting to know about cover crops. They also can help loosen the soil, and they also provide essential nutrients like nitrogen. They can often be referred to as the legumes. The cover crop legumes are often referred to as nitrogen fixators. So Amelia was kind of touching base on nitrogen and its importance in plant life. So when you're thinking about choosing your cover crops and what to grow, you kind of want to think about what are your goals for planting your cover crops. Do you want more fertility in your soil? Do you want to have more erosion control? Do you want to break up compact soil? Add more organic matter? Do you have a weed issue? Do you want to use it more for weed suppression? And you can always combine multiple different cover crop species for varying benefits. A lot of farmers do that. So it's kind of up to you and up to what you observe on your farm and in your soil based on what you would like to choose for your cover crop. And oftentimes, like Amelia was saying, farmers kind of discover if, they'll do soil testing to kind of determine what is their soil health. And we do that at Big River Farms, and many farmers do this to determine the soil health, and then you'll get those results and just kind of see, what nutrients you're needing to bring to your soil. So if you're looking to have more cover crops for fertility, you would want to choose a legume. So either choosing peas, clover, or vetch. And this is, I think, a field of peas. And then if you're wanting to choose cover crops for more of a erosion control, you can choose cover crops like oats, rye, or winter wheat. And then if you have really compact soil and you want to loosen that up, you can use radishes, turnips, or sugar beets to loosen up compact soil. And then if you're wanting to add more organic matter, typically farmers use sorghum, Sudan grass, or buckwheat. And then this is buckwheat. This is a picture of the buckwheat. I think it's so beautiful. And then cover crops for weed suppression, there's essentially all of them can be used for that. So this is sorghum, Sudan grass, and rye, oats, and winter wheat are all used for weed suppression. And so typically cover crops are planted whenever you're going to have that area of your farm, a bed that's going to be bare for a while. You can put cover crops on it, plant them in either the fall or the spring, and you can have them over winter, and they will die off when the frost hits, but they'll just be covering that bed of soil throughout the whole winter. And then you can use that soil the next year, and it will be full of all these really great nutrients that these cover crops provide, essentially. That's just a little brief introduction to cover crops. I know it wasn't a whole lot. We will definitely be having more sessions, classes on cover crops, and go more in depth about just the importance and overall fascination of cover crops and what they provide for our soil and our farms. So if there's any questions about that, feel free to ask. Or any questions overall about the presentation.
I have a question on the cover crops. So even Amelia was saying you have a diversity above ground. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, let's say I'm growing tomatoes. So are you suggesting I should try to grow other things around the tomato plant, just tomatoes with maybe basil or multiple different cover crops? I don't know, but things maybe I can harvest and also use, and just try to just do it on, instead of just this traditional row, just have multiple things in the same vicinity. Would that be like a cover crop?
Yeah, so cover crops are a specific family of crops, but I mean I think what you're saying is more kind of doing companion planting and having more, that's kind of essentially like what Amelia was talking about, having more diversity. So you can grow tomatoes next to basil, and just kind of have more of those companion plants essentially. Cover crops are more if you want to fill like a whole bed that's bare. You can put cover crops on that bare soil, and they'll grow there and essentially bring nutrients to that soil. And then you can till that soil with those cover crops once they've been there for a year, and then that soil contains all those nutrients from the cover crops.
Okay, so it's more like for resting the soil.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. At the same time that the soil is going to take a rest, also you provide organic matter with cover crops. Is one of the most important source of organic matter here in Minnesota that farmers do it. That practice is a traditional practice that comes from indigenous people from here. So take a lot of time with this practice. Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question here. With the vegetables, like the vegetables operation, we know if you have a limited space, it's hard to do cover crop because they go all the way to October. Maybe the earliest time I find that I have space is in end of August. I don't know if you have any ideas on how to incorporate cover crop and vegetable growing during the season.
Yeah, I think you can. I have seen some farmers do some like companion planting with certain vegetables, as long as like one's not crowding out the other or shading out another plant. I have seen farmers kind of do companion planting that way. So yeah, that is an option. I don't know if any other farmers in this discussion have experience with that.
I can chime in on the cover crop topic a little bit, Moses. So out here at Big River, one thing we did this last fall was we seeded winter rye. That's pretty much the only cover crop that's going to survive winters up here in Minnesota. So we seed it in the fall, and it just kind of hangs out the whole winter underneath the snow. And then in the springtime, it sprouts. And we let that winter rye grow until, I think this year, we'll see what the weather does, but we'll probably let it grow until like mid-April to early May. So it will be, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 inches tall. And then once it reaches that level, we'll mow it down, and then we'll kind of start prepping our fields for the season. So that is one thing that you could try to work into your rotation, is doing a fall cover crop like winter rye. As for cover crops during the season, what do we do? There are some shorter cover crops like buckwheat. I know buckwheat is like a pretty fast one to establish itself. I think it takes about 8 weeks. So that's something that you could try. You could plant it in, after the frost, so mid-May to late May, and let that grow until July, and then kind of seed or transplant like a fall harvest crop, something that's a little shorter season. So that might give you some ideas. Hopefully that's helpful.
Pierce, also, can you mention about the clover that you have in the aisle?
Sure. What do you want me to talk about?
Yeah, you are using cover crops to cover your
Sure.
plant.
Yeah, I guess yeah, that is a good point. I guess that does touch on Moses's question as well. So one thing we did, my wife and I did on our small farm this last season, was we planted our aisles with cover crops. So we did a mixture of clover as well as oats. And we did that for a couple reasons. We didn't want bare dirt in our aisles. We wanted to have nice green aisles. But I think, like Emilio mentioned earlier, the clover also helps fix some nitrogen. So we did that was like kind of one of the benefits. But then we also were concerned about like erosion. When we get big rainstorms, we didn't want that soil eroding away. So having that cover crop in your aisles kind of helps hold the soil there and prevent some of those nutrients from being washed away. So yeah, I would definitely recommend exploring that idea. We did have to then, mow our aisles with a mower or with a weed whacker, but we thought that it was worth it for our farm.
Oh, Pierce, I have a question. The land that we are going to be farming at Big River, have those have had the cover crop on them? So that's what we will use?
That's a good question. Yeah, so all of the land out here at Big River was planted with winter rye this last fall. So when April and May come when April and May come around, all of the fields should be green with winter rye. So that winter rye will be there in the springtime. Yes.
You just prepare it by mowing it down and then you leave it there?
Yep. So there'll be a couple options. You could either mow it down. And what could you do? Yeah, you could mow it down, and then you could till your soil and kind of prep it that way for your vegetables for the season. Or you could mow it down and seed part of your field with a kind of summer cover crop. I think those are about the two options. Yeah, mowing it down and tilling, or mowing it down and seeding it with another cover crop are kind of like the two options.
You couldn't plant your vegetables in little holes in the cover crop, the mowed down cover crop, and use it as like a mulch?
With some cover crops, you can do that. With the winter rye, you'll probably have some difficulty because the winter rye will keep growing. You have to kind of kill the winter rye somehow. So you don't want the winter rye competing with your vegetables, or else your vegetables just won't really grow that much. Okay. But you could keep the winter rye in your aisles. So you could mow the winter rye and then just rototill, be pretty specific about where you're tilling your field. So you're only tilling where your vegetables are going, but you're keeping the winter rye in your aisles. That could be an option.
Okay.
Any other questions? Comments?
Okay, this is May. Yeah, I just want to mention a little bit about cover crop. If who want to know, don't know where to buy the seed or how to purchase, then just call us and we are here to help you to buy cover crop. If you work at the Big River farmer over there, and we already had that cover crop on the land for everybody in there. If who not farm over there and they want to cover crop some area that they're gonna rest, or they're not ready yet and they think they're gonna plant in July their cash flow crop, then they can cover crop in May and June, and they can turn it down and they can plant in the area that they cover crop. And so that is the another option. And so I just mentioned that if you need seed, just let me know. I can walk you through. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, May. Perfect. Okay. Well, if there aren't any other questions, we can let you all go and enjoy your evenings. Thank you so much, Emilio, for your wonderful presentation. I hope everyone has a good evening. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Emilio.